Vitar, one move, a second. Oh, that is brilliant. What a finish. Montejado's first for Pacific is a memorable one.
Salter's in. Sam Salter! CPL history! The first haul of 4 belongs to Ottawa's number 9, Sam Salter.
CPL Newsroom presented by Volkswagen, Week 6, Charlie O'Connor-Clark with Mitchell Tierney and Alex Gangué-Ruzic. And boys, if you just started watching this show this year, I think you'd probably think it was the Atletico Ottawa Newsroom because my God, they are the story again every week. Only 3 games over the weekend in Week 6. As I just mentioned, Ottawa 5, Valor 2 at home. Halifax 0, Cavalry 3 at the Wanderers grounds. Pacific 2, York United 1 to end off that day. Lots of drama this weekend, lots of fun, a few late goals. But boys, as always, it seems we're going to start in the capital because welcome to the Sam Salter Show. The Ottawa striker sets a CPL record with 4 goals in a game. The first guy to ever do that. The first Ottawa player ever to score a hat trick, actually. But this was a crazy game. They concede first to Valor, and then just as they've kind of done a few times this year, step their game up, find a way to score a million goals. Mitch, you were on this game for us, and we're gonna talk about Sam Salter specifically. You want to ask, is he reaching a new level in his Ottawa attack? Maybe tell us a bit about Sam Salter this year and why he seems to suddenly be so much more effective.
Well, the 4-goal performance is obviously exceptional and historic, but it's not in isolation, right? Like, I think Sam Salter has been put in a position to succeed much better this year in a lot of different ways. I mean, for one, he's not just coming out in and out of the lineup, playing limited minutes, obviously with Ruben Del Campo preferred last season for good reason with the way he was scoring, but it's the chances that he's creating. I mean, that are being created for him as well. Like the fact that in the past, maybe he'd get 1 or 2 of these in a game and he was forced to just kind of, be up there alone, isolated, holding the line, doing a lot of that sort of defensive running. This year, he has all sorts of chances in front of goal. I think he missed one maybe like 2 minutes into the game, and it's like, no matter, I'm going to have a few more. So I think when you're a confidence-based striker, knowing you're going to get a lot of chances, then that gives you the opportunity to, if you miss one, you don't have to put your head down. And there's a lot to like about the way he's playing within this system. He's making a lot of excellent runs in behind. We see last week he's able to create some assists through that. This week it's all goals for Sam Salter, as he's consistently getting in behind those lines and making those great runs and finishing. And then again, he has more players around him in this new system. He's already at the best assists he's ever had in a CPL season with 3. This is a player that we know is good. He scored 11 goals with Halifax a few years back. 6 of those were penalties, but this year it's reached a whole new level. And an interesting stat I was looking up, since 2022, no player has now scored more goals in the CPL than Sam Salter. So he's been doing it for a while, but this year I think we're really going to see that next evolution, and he's going to be more front and center of what a special Atletico Ottawa team is doing.
It definitely seems so, and as you mentioned, he's doing a lot more than just trying to get on the end of those chances. He's holding up the ball. I mean, last week against Pacific, he didn't score the goals, but he assisted 2 of them by holding up the ball and just being that focal point in Ottawa's attack. And it's got to be a lot more fun being the striker in a team like this current Atletico Ottawa team that wants to get forward so much and wants to create those chances, wants to be aggressive and direct and vertical. Salter, 5 goals, 3 assists this year. David Rodriguez, 4 goals, 3 assists. Brutal numbers next to Sam Salter's marvelous ones. But boys, I think we're already at a point on here Monday, May 12th, where I would be stunned if David Rodriguez was not the player of the year in the Canadian Premier League this year. barring any kind of injury or anything like that, God forbid. But this guy is just a different level, right, Mitch?
Yeah, he certainly is. I mean, you just see the way he's able to break open games, the dribbling ability, just everything about him is so much fun to watch. And yeah, again, he's in a system that really complements that and allows him to get those opportunities. And a coach that obviously wants to play this free flowing attacking football and puts him in great positions. But obviously, with what he's doing in those spots, yeah, Devin Rodriguez is your runaway player of the year at this point in the season. Again, we'll see if. Yeah, hope he can stay healthy. Obviously, that's the main thing.
Yeah.
We'll see if Ottawa can keep it up, but I think no matter what, like he's going to be there at the end of the season, at least deep in that conversation.
Yeah, I just hope that we do at the CPL get to play a small part in this guy's career story, because I have a feeling we're going to be seeing this guy playing in Liga MX fairly soon, to be honest, because he's just a cut above. He's so good. But Ottawa, we do also have to mention, they do keep fighting back from behind. Like, they seem to be so unworried when they fall behind. 10 points already this year from losing positions. They had 10 all of last year. And in 3 years under Carlos Gonzalez, they had 18 in total. So this year, they probably don't want to be falling behind as much as they are, but it doesn't seem like it's that much of a problem for them at the moment, because they're just scoring so many goals. A team that can't seem to score quite as many goals and would maybe struggle to keep up with a team scoring 5, Valor, unfortunately. It feels like a similar story the last few weeks with Valor, Mitch. Costly errors, right? Like, is that what you're seeing from them? And is there anything you think they can do to limit this?
Yeah, I mean, I liked how they started the match, right? They started the match, in a 4-4-2 compact. They're pressing well. They get an early goal. That's exactly what you want from them on the road in this match in the nation's capital. But then, a loose spell of possession, they give a ball away. All of a sudden, it's 1-1. Later in the half, simple ball over the top from Nate Ingham after a moment where they had 2 great chances to score on Ingham. And honestly, Ingham's just kind of mad at that moment, I think. And just maybe this is discrediting what was a good ball, but I think he's just kind of smashing it forward because Ottawa were playing that poorly. And then, Kelsey Agu misses a header and Sam Salter's in behind. And there's another one. Like, you think back to last week against Vancouver FC and Alejandro Diaz, how simple that was for him over the top. You think of, Vitor Diaz in their home opener. Anyone named Diaz, really, they're losing right now defensively. But Vitor Diaz, they just stopped tracking him on that late goal. Like, for everything that they're starting to do well and put together, it's just getting undone by these, rather simple errors. And yeah, I mean, really fascinating one to look ahead coming up against York United, because these are 2 teams that absolutely are trying to figure things out right now. And interestingly, I was looking this up, like if Valor don't win on Friday, like even if they draw, their start to the season points wise is actually worse than it was last year, which is pretty dreadful considering, again, last year was all on the road. They had those kind of conditions where you would expect it to, maybe be a little bit worse, but things are not going great for Valor right now. I don't think there's any questions about that.
No, absolutely. Stuck on 1 point, the only winless team left in the Canadian Premier League this year. To wrap this one up from TD Place, we go back to Ottawa to hear from their coach, Phil Santos.
It was important to get the first goal. It was important to get a goal on a set play because we've had a lot in our favor not being able to capitalize. We got both of those. I think that we clearly had 2 good chances to score the 2-1. Ultimately, football is about making plays. It's about making plays. Look, the first goal is a play that our defender needs to deal with better. I think goals came too easy, way too easy. Stepping out of the line when we didn't need to. We needed to protect the space. Being bumped off the ball easily, not following a run. Ultimately, I'm at the center of the process, but the plays need to be made. And today, I think that's where it failed. In big moments, in the important moments where you could take a lead, you couldn't make the play. And in the defensive phase, we didn't deal well enough with a one ball, just just being able to be eliminated by it. And I think that ultimately that's what we need to look at.
All right, we'll pick the mood up here a little bit and head to Halifax, where the mood isn't necessarily great, but Cavalry's mood is. What a win for them, 3-0 on the road in Halifax. Bit of a weird game, I think. 0-0 up until almost halftime. Cavalry win a penalty thanks to Musi coming in on goal, taken down by Yesley. Not totally sure about this one personally, but obviously it's a big moment where Shevsky scores the penalty well just before halftime, and then the second half is just a pretty clear case of Halifax pushing everything forward to try and find that equalizer, and Cavalry just kind of finding the space in behind, pressing them and winning the ball and getting in behind, thanks to Musi and Warshevsky, who are just back at the top of their game. I gave my man of the match to Warshevsky in this game just because he won like 12 duels, set up this goal, scored the first one from the penalty spot. But I wouldn't have obviously didn't judge anybody picking Musi because he scored twice, his first 2 CPL goals of the season. And these guys are just so good when they're at the top of their game for Cavalry. They have been for years. And I looked this up. Ali Musi and Toby Warshevsky have scored in 28 different games for Cavalry over their time there. And Cavalry have lost just 2 of those games, which is just a mark for me of how important these guys are to their success. I think personally, when Warshevsky and Musi are flying, there is really nobody that can properly stop them in the Canadian Premier League. Alex, maybe we'll come to you here because you watched a good bit of Cavalry over the years. Just how much is this individual brilliance just a huge part of their success and their identity?
Yeah, it's just massive because, like, you know they're going to be organized defensively. You know they're going to be tough out. For whatever reason, that doesn't extend to April. We spoke about it a few weeks ago, how they were maybe finding their feet, but you see it like against Halifax, they gave up next to nothing of quality. They were just so solid and organized. And if you're Musi and Warshevsky, they're just kind of sitting there knowing, like, all right, like, just need a chance, need a moment. And I think Warshevsky for me is just the big key. Like, his movement is unbelievable. The way he just pops up left wing, right wing, and like, you have to respect him because he can make things happen from there. But then you look away for a moment. Next, he's just in your box or right around the edge of the 6 playing a killer pass or scoring a goal. And I just can't imagine trying to defend that because every other striker seems like they're always trying to get in behind you. They're trying to be on you, like, where they are. Whereas Warshevsky he's almost like a CPL's Houdini, right? He's always trying to do a little disappearing act. He's here, he's there, he's everywhere. So no, it makes it so hard to match because then you're so worried about Warshevsky. Maybe you leave extra half space for Musi, and you've seen Musi's goal catalog. He scores goals where defenders are right pressed up against him. He gets half an inch top corner. So it's just, so tough to defend. And then you add in guys like Walling, Herdman, who can come and work hard. Camargo, you always know, is just going to run and, find those spaces. It just is such a lethal combination. And I think Cavalry really have that perfect balance as they showed on their North Star Cup winning campaign last year.
Yeah, they sure did. And I think when you do get Musi making those runs in behind like he was against Halifax, he just found so much space. Like, he wins the penalty getting behind the line. There's another one earlier in the first half where I think it's Kareem Sow has to make an incredible ball saving tackle in the box. Both the goals he manages to get in behind the defense. It's just, he's so hard to track, especially when, as you mentioned, Alex, Toby Warshevsky is just taking up so much attention. And if you're a defender, you can't really help but cheat towards him and try to cut off some of his space. But then at that point, Moose is behind you and you're screwed, right? That's just what happens when you've got these two guys clicking so incredibly. I also want to shout out with Cavalry, a couple of the young guys that they started. They bring Max Peepgrass into the starting 11, partly because of the injury. Michael Baldissimo is out. It sounds like he strained his MCL, so maybe a few weeks for him at least. Jesse Daly just getting back to fitness. Diego Gutierrez not quite there yet. So it's Peepgrass that comes in for the start in the province where he went to university, by the way, Cape Breton Caper. He does really well next to Shamit Shom in a game where Halifax kind of set up their midfield, clearly expecting a fight and a scrap. They start Rampersad instead of Caligari, clearly expecting it to be a game where they maybe don't have as much of the free-flowing possession as they're used to. They know Cavalry that it'll be a physical game. So it's a tough assignment for a young guy like Peepgrass. He does really, really well, I think, against that midfield. And then up on the wing for Cavalry, Mikhail Gerasimenkov, Sorry, easy for me to say. He looks like he was fitting in almost immediately to this Cavalry kind of front-footed defensive style. I think he won the ball like 5 times as a winger in this game. Obviously, that natural fullback skill set is kind of coming into play there. He's able to hunt for the ball and win it at a lot of good times. So, a lot to like about Cavalry's depth, because they have had a lot of injuries to start the year, but it's pretty clear that they're able to bring players into their system, teach them the identity, and Tommy Wilden Jr. can trust them in the starting 11. But we got to talk about Halifax here, who started the season so well. Their unbeaten run is now over. And if you include that Canadian Championship game on Wednesday, they've lost 2 in a row. Bit of a frustrating game for Halifax. And I think we'll start with what their coach, Patrice Geiser, had to say after it.
The easy part is that when you have such a good positive start, everyone's going to give you their best game. So, Calgary came out and was flying, and everyone's going to apply more intensity. Guys are going to block shots, so they're going to put effort. So whatever we've done to get us where we are, it just can't be enough. We got to do more now, because not many leagues in the world, you play the same team 4 times. So as you start to build some momentum, all the teams are going to give you everything they got. So we cannot perform the same and expect the results to continue. We got to get better every game.
So yeah, what Patrice is saying here is they started really well, and then other teams picked up their level to match Halifax, knowing that they were playing well. Mitch, do you think there's something to that? Do you think Halifax need to get up to the second level again after starting well? They can't be complacent. Do you think that's maybe part of the reason why they're struggling a bit? The ball's not going in as freely as it was earlier?
Potentially. I mean, obviously short rest in this one as well, traveling home from that midweek Can Champ game plays a bit of a factor in everything from, the squad they picked to that sort of thing. I do think one thing, it is a little bit better when you're in this position and, you maybe lose a few after you have built up that positive momentum. Like, this is obviously the opposite of where they were last year, where things were, so poor off the start of the season, or at least the results weren't there, that, anytime you lose another game, like, it feels like you're that much closer to the bottom versus the top. So I think they're in a much better situation. Obviously important that, don't lose 2 in a row, at least in the league, is going to be vital for them. But I think at the moment, I think, again, they're going to have to raise their standards. I think that you have to do that. Again, you play every team 4 times. You have to raise your standard every time you play a team, because they're going to come with something different. They're going to come with a new idea. They have more tape on you now. That's how this league works. So I do agree with that sentiment, but they're in a good place, I think.
Yeah, they are. And every game counts the same. The 3 points in the first few weeks of the season count the same as they do in May. But you do need to see them maybe get out of this rut a little bit. 7 goals in their first 3 games of the CPL season, 1 in their second 3, which I think is frustrating. Although they did hit the woodwork twice against Cavalry. And if Ryan Telfer puts that one in the first half, this might be a very, very different game, because Halifax are no longer forced to open up and give up that space behind them, which is how Cavalry scored their second 2 goals. But you never know, and that's not what happened. So Halifax frustrated again on home soil. Maybe that Wanderers Grounds fortress needs a little bit of patching up, because they have not looked unbeatable there in these 2 games against Cavalry and Forge. All right, on to the third matchup of the Saturday of match week 6. This was Pacific against York United out at Starlight Stadium. AGR, you were there for us. This was a lot of fun. York score first again. Pacific equalized from the penalty spot. And then it's Emmanuel Montejano scoring in the 92nd minute to win it for Pacific. And we're going to start with the winning team, as we usually do.
Golazo.
From his
Golazo by just kind of like lying on the goal line, and it bounces off him. Alex, I think you want to come and speak specifically about Montejano. I mean, maybe not one at the front of his highlight reel, but this is a guy who has 18 first team appearances for Pumas in Mexico. Is he maybe going to be the answer for Pacific up top? We've talked about them needing that focal point. Do you think it can be him?
Yeah, small sample size, but I think you really started to show it, because even the first few games we've seen him, he's made 2 appearances before this one in each competition, Can Champ and CPL. But he was just a presence as soon as he came on, even before that goal, right? At least yeah, he scored from his rear end with a bit of fortune, but he created that chance just with a great run, header right on top where Tiaga makes a phenomenal save. And I just think Pacific have lacked that presence. And I think it's something where even James Merriman said it straight up after. Like Josh Hurt, he's been excellent up front in terms of work rate, in terms of just, getting in behind, being annoying for defenders to deal with. But Josh Hurt will tell you, Merriman said it. He's not a natural striker. There's just certain movements that's not part of his game. He's not, he doesn't have that same physical presence. You can see it. Monteano has a bit of that number 9 about him where immediately wants to go and gets into duels, gets feisty, back to goal. He's, throwing elbows back. Hurd can definitely do that, but that's not his style. He's best when you get him on the wing. He's running. And I think just Pacific have missed that focal point because what's flown under the radar of this season, at least I felt, is how good Marco Bustos has been, for example.
Yeah.
Marco Bustos has been excellent. He was my man of the match again in this game, created a boatload of chances. It's just so dangerous. Yet how many times has it been a sight early on that he takes his defender one-on-one, cuts in, whips in a great ball, and no one's there? I think just having that presence up front is going to be huge because Bustos is creating by the boatload. He did for the goal. All of a sudden that frees up Hurd to go on the wing, and I think Pacific have missed that energy, that work rate, that directness he's brought from the front. I think they missed that on the wing, and all of a sudden feels like all the pieces are going to go into place for there. So Monteano is huge. I think he's going to be huge in the sense that he brings that presence. Now the big thing to watch is his fitness. He arrived preseason late due to paperwork issues, and I think that's something that Pacific were frustrated with. Because of that, he's kind of behind the 8 ball in terms of getting up to speed in time. But as with the striker, they always say sometimes you just need a goal for confidence. Maybe just him getting this goal will kind of accelerate that process.
Yeah, certainly possible. And that would be a huge, huge development for Pacific, who have really been looking for that focal point center forward since Alejandro Diaz left them. And we've talked about it a bunch of times in this podcast. So I would be pretty happy not to have to talk about that same storyline again. And Montano can become that. Quickly before we move on to York, let's get James Merriman's take on this new striker they've brought in as well.
Yeah, he's been patient. He came in late, obviously, to our group. He's been patiently working his way into the team, integrating himself, and I think you see the energy that he brings with his pressing, and his work rate is very high. He knows where he needs to be, which is in the box and in front of goal and be in that space, and it's important for him to get started.
Absolutely. All right, York, though, let's talk about them because they keep taking the lead, kind of the inverse of Atletico Ottawa. They keep taking the lead, and they keep not winning. They led against Halifax, Ottawa, Forge, now Pacific. They've got 1 point from those 4 games, which means that's 11 points dropped from winning positions. Alex, what is stopping York from turning these good starts into better results?
Yeah, it's an incredible question because genuinely, if you sat down and watched only the first 30 minutes of every York game, you'd think they'd be running away with the Canadian Premier League. Like, they're incredible. Right. In this game, again, they came out strong. I was watching for the first 30 minutes. There was a point where I was thinking, like, Pacific are going to be in trouble. York look good. They're getting their wing backs forward. They score a beautiful goal with Gabby Batar. But then it's, all of a sudden the wheels just kind of fall off. And I think the big thing that they'll look at is the defensive side. It just hasn't been good enough. I think they're just giving up too many cheap goals, sloppy goals, moments that are like their lines out of place. They're not tracking a runner well enough. That one, I think they can look at and be okay. At least it's chemistry, right? These guys are still working together. New system, new coach, new goalkeeper, all those factors, don't help. The fact too that Tiaga started the last few games, Pavella the first few. You also are chopping and changing there in terms of who is available, who's been in the group. You'd like to think that's going to come, but then there's just a lot of little mistakes even on the ball. Like, if they're doing so great for 30 minutes, 40 minutes in the attack, why does that kind of go away? And I think Mario Stacchio himself had a bit of a theory. I thought it was interesting. He kind of talked about complacency, being comfortable. I think that is something to watch because, this is a group that's it. They've played well. They've had a bit of that confidence, and maybe they've let that kind of get to them thinking, oh man, we're playing so well. It's going to come easy to us. And you kind of forget in the CPL that there's no easy game. Everyone's going to give it to you. And, when you're so familiar with each other, that will happen. So for York, it definitely feels like a mix of concentration, defensive discipline, and it would help. The one thing that stood out, like, just score a second goal. That's also been another thing. Like, don't be happy with the first. get the second. The only time they got the second, there was Vancouver, and they won. Every other time they go up that one, they don't get the second, and that allows teams to hang around too. Good teams put other teams away before it's too late.
Yeah, play Athletic
they
Ottawa
absolutely do.
defense.
Yeah. But Athletic Ottawa defense being score 5 goals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't-
Okay.
Can't defend against that.
We'll get Mauro on the horn. We'll let him know. Maybe you're onto something there. All right, boys. We have to move on. Let's quickly bring up the standings at the end of match week 6. We're pretty close to the quarter pole of this season already. Athletic Ottawa 5 points clear at the top of the table with 16 points, followed by Halifax, who, as we mentioned, built up that cushion for themselves. Forge in third, Cavalry fourth with 7 points. Pacific also have 7 points, but just behind. Vancouver below the playoff line with 5, followed by York in 7th with 4, and Valor at the bottom with just the 1 point so far. But we've got a lot of interesting games coming up in the next 7 days. And that starts tomorrow. That starts on Tuesday morning, where we've got Forge against Atletico Ottawa in the second annual school day game at Hamilton Stadium. This one's going to be a lot of fun. I'm hearing talking about 17,000 local kids in attendance for this game. I think Forge are actually aiming for the CPL's all-time attendance record, which I believe is 17,611 from the inaugural game back in 2019. And it's going to be a lot of children from the local Hamilton area, which is going to be a lot of fun. Mitch, we were at this game last year against CF Montreal. We're going to be at this one again. Boys, my question for you, though, is what is your favorite school soccer memory from your time? Because this is always a lot of fun. Everybody plays a little bit in school. Mitch, let's start with you.
I don't know if it's my favorite, but like every recess, basically, we were like the Mighty Ducks. Like we had the ragtag team who played against the kids who like actually
offside?
played soccer. Pardon?
Offside, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. Like the kids who had actually played soccer, we never won because anytime we were winning, some kid would claim offside. None of us knew what offside was. So we're like, oh, okay, I guess. So that was always the case. And then the only other rule I remember was anytime the goalie caught the ball, you had to dogpile him. It was part of the rules. You just had everyone just jumped on the goalkeeper. So that was proper footy growing up. But I think I think they should add that into the laws of the game.
I agree. I mean, I don't know how safe it would be, but we could try it out. Get some padding. Alex, do you score any golazos on the playground?
Definitely a few, but what was fun was every week at lunch we would play, and we were just sickos. We'd play for bragging rights and chirp each other about it. And then some genius, when I was in grade 12, so the end of my school journey, I was in my and the mid-30s journeyman, just looking to end my career on a high. We decided to do a tournament, which we should have done when we were like in grade 8 or 9. And it was fun because a bunch of us are in grade 12. We're all the captains. It was insane to be like looking at each other, knowing that whoever wins, right, you got bragging rights after. There's no next year. There's no whatever. And that's it. We won the first one in a final. We went down 1-0 in the final. I scored a free kick. Somehow our gym was packed. And we're playing on like the tiny hockey nets. I literally just closed my eyes and smashed it. Somehow went in. We won 2-1. And that was probably the peak of my footballing career, lifting that fake Valley Village trophy we got and just representing Team Senegal, because we did it was World Cup style. We represent your home nation. So definitely since then my footballing career is just, I felt like a void I haven't been able to live up to since that.
Absolutely. I mean, the highlight of my entire soccer career was in grade 2 winning the Toronto District Indoor Soccer Championship on penalties. Shout out St. John's Elementary in Toronto. Sorry, St. Dennis, weren't good enough to beat us. I actually didn't take a penalty because I was pretty bad. But anyway, it's going to be a lot of fun in Hamilton this weekend. By the way things are going, I don't know if we're going to be seeing like some salt-based celebrations in the playgrounds of Hamilton in the coming weeks. We're star makers here in the Canadian Premier League. We're going to have kids going home and asking their parents for David Rodriguez or maybe Moba Bully jerseys. This is going to be a lot of fun, though. A big game in the CPL, obviously, between the two remaining unbeaten teams, Forge and Atletico Ottawa. So don't miss it. If you're working, you can put OneSoccer on the screen over here, and nobody will blame you because this isn't one that you're going to want to miss. Anyway, the other 3 games we do have coming up next weekend are also fun. We mentioned that Valor York game on Friday night, huge one for both teams, followed by Saturday's TSN game, Cavalry against Pacific. And then we got Vancouver hosting the Halifax Wanderers later on Saturday evening/afternoon. Lots of action, lots to keep track of. And we'll be back to keep track of all of it again next week. But until then, thank you very, very much for joining us.
Back to Vitar. One move, a second. Oh, that is brilliant. What a finish. Montejado's first for Pacific is a memorable one.
Salter's in. Sam Salter!